This is, very often, what biking is like for me. And I'm tired of it. I haven't put out a video in a while, and that's because I've been working on a bunch of projects that are all taking much longer than expected. The obvious solution was, add another one. That one definitely won't take too long, just a quick little project and a quick little video. Well, here I am a month later. For years I've joked about mounting string trimmers on my bike to clear a way through overgrown greenery, but that idea always had a significant moral flaw. It would endanger everyone else around me except me. No good. Offloading risk onto random strangers is just not cool. But what if I mounted one on my helmet? Then I'd definitely only be clearing the greenery really in my way, and more importantly, even if something went terribly wrong, I would be the only one to suffer for it. Morality? Check. Well, as this idea was bouncing around in my head most recently, I happened to go visit my parents to help out with some household stuff. And they had a battery-powered string trimmer sitting around unused after my dad changed battery systems. Perfect. First step was to take it apart and see how things were mounted inside. Sometimes they're so specific to the injection molded housing that it can be a pain to do anything else with them, but it looked pretty straightforward in this case. The motor and the gearing reduction was a cleanly removable unit, so I would just need a way to hold them. To CAD. I went with a basic symmetrical clamshell that would grip the motor casing when bolted around it, with a secondary tube that would hide the drive shaft and hold its lower bearing in place. That was the easy part, just a bunch of developable surfaces in the right combination. But mounting that to a helmet with its much more organic curves was going to be harder. I grabbed an old helmet from the pile of bike stuff, not wanting to use my good helmet if this ended up needing permanent modifications. Instead of just guessing and running through a long series of wasteful test prints, I decided to try some photogrammetry to build a 3D model of it. It wasn't super accurate, but not bad for a half-assed attempt on a shiny surface. When I was working in computer vision in grad school, not that long ago, this was seriously cutting-edge stuff. And now, you can do it with a free app on a mobile device. I brought the mesh into CAD and used it to cut off the bottom of the model, so it would closely conform to the specific curves of the helmet. The result was a bit ugly though, due to the rough nature of the mesh. I ended up bringing it into Blender and cleaning up the vertices a bit there. All in all, I did 3 test prints of one half, then just one final print of the full thing in a carbon fiber PLA I've come to like quite a bit. And while there are things I'd change, it worked, and I really was trying to stick to good enough on this project. Wiring was pretty simple, using a handlebar push button I found on Amazon. In addition to being a convenient way to control it, this would also serve as a deadman switch, should I crash or something while using the string trimmer. The slightest motion of my thumb and the power would be cut, hopefully preventing some really ugly scenarios. And speaking of safety, it was time to start carefully testing the operation of this thing. My instincts said it wouldn't actually be that big of a deal, but I'd only ever used a string trimmer on the end of a long pole before. I didn't really know just how much torque it experienced on startup or when the string hit something too thick to cut. I have trouble naming a death I do want, but snapping my own neck with a novelty gardening implement is definitely not one of them. The startup torque was easily tested, and it was nothing. The gyroscopic effects weren't much either. So I tried hitting a rigidly mounted 2x4 while holding it in my hand. My non-dominant hand, of course. And that was also nothing at all. So I tried running it strapped to my head. It works. And while a very weird and ridiculous feeling, it was fine. So I tried cutting some foliage with it. And again, it was absolutely fine. A bit loud, but some lubrication cleared that up. There was a bigger problem with the auto feed mechanism though. Possibly, for the first time in the entire sordid history of string trimmers, it was feeding out too much too regularly. And without the little blade on the shield to cut it to length, it just kept getting longer and longer. I thought about adding a blade on a little arm to the motor mount, but that would be a pain to dial in. I thought about putting on a blade on the stick that I could just hold up in the path of the string to cut it to length as needed, but that seemed unlikely to work very well. In the end, I just disabled the auto-feed mechanism entirely with the help of a packaging staple I found in the trash to pin it into place. This means I'll have to open it up to feed out more string as needed, but that seemed like the simplest, most reliable way to handle it. So, it was time to put it to use. And that's it. A quick, ridiculous little project that actually turned out a lot better than I'd hoped for. And after all the safety concerns, my own and literally every single person I mentioned this idea to, it ended up being no big deal. I didn't even think it was working that well until I got home and saw that footage. You bike through the debris cloud so quickly you barely even see anything. But Tony on the chase bike ended up covered in quite a bit of leaves and other gunk, so it's not something to use in a dense crowd. I don't think I'll be wearing it every time I go for a ride, but it's not nearly as unpleasant to use as I had feared. It's a bit more weight than I like to carry on my head, but acceptable. I do still worry about getting clotheslined by it if I hit a hidden branch though. That sounds alarmingly unfun. In other news, the Conway's Life modular cells project is coming along quite well. In fact, I have 9 fully functional cells that I'll be showing off at OpenSauce this week. These are made with component electronics only. No microcontroller or code to be found on them. And the homemade magnetic pogo pin connectors even work pretty well. It'll finally be time to get into full mass production mode on these when I get back, because I need like 150, 200, I need a lot. And I've been exploring the possibility of homemade eyeglasses after finding out that you can order 60mm lens blanks in your prescription for only $25. Doing everything else from that point on is turning out to be surprisingly realistic. I've been wearing a pair of 3D printed frames with lenses I edged myself from blanks as my daily drivers for the last week. And I've also been refurbishing an old cargo trike, which now actually makes for an okay ride with the addition of a differential. That is destined to become a bike RV, and I'll be starting on the RV part soon now that the chassis is usable. That's several more videos in the works, which means I should hopefully be able to hit a nice monthly cadence later in the year. Until some other ridiculous idea takes over my brain, of course. So yeah, come say hi if you're at OpenSauce this week, July 18th through 19th, 2026, in San Mateo, California. They haven't given out booth assignments yet, but once they do, I'll make a community post here on the channel to let you know where you can find me. See you there, maybe. Cheers.